The Antikythera mechanism is an ancient Greek bronze device recovered from a shipwreck off the island of Antikythera and dated to roughly the 2nd to 1st century BCE. It is widely considered the world's first known analog computer. The mechanism consists of a complex system of interlocking bronze gears housed in a wooden case with dials and inscriptions on its surfaces. Its primary function was to model the motions of the sun, moon, and possibly the visible planets, allowing users to predict eclipses and track key astronomical cycles such as the Metonic cycle, 19-year alignment of lunar and solar calendars, and the Saros cycle, about 18 years between similar eclipses. A hand crank likely drove the gears, which translated rotational movement into coordinated motion across several dials. The inscriptions serve as a kind of instruction manual, explaining which scales show calendar dates, zodiac positions, and eclipse predictions. The level of mechanical sophistication implies a highly advanced tradition of Hellenistic engineering that was previously unknown from surviving texts. The so-called Baghdad battery refers to a set of ceramic jars discovered near modern-day Baghdad, usually dated to the Parthian or early Sasanian period, roughly 200 BCE to 200 CE. Each jar contains a copper cylinder and an iron rod, isolated from each other by bitumen. When filled with an acidic liquid such as vinegar or grape juice, this arrangement can generate a small electric potential, similar to a simple galvanic cell. No ancient text clearly describes their intended use, which is why they are labeled mysterious. Some researchers propose they were used for electroplating thin metal coatings onto small objects, while others argue they may have been containers or ritual objects unrelated to electricity. The absence of clear residues from electroplating and the limited number of examples leave the question unresolved. Their importance lies in the possibility that ancient craftsmen may have discovered practical applications of electrochemical reactions long before modern science formalized electrical theory. The Piri Reis map is an early 16th century world map drawn on gazelle skin by Ottoman admiral and cartographer Piri Reis, dated to 1513. It is remarkable because it combines information from many earlier sources, including lost Portuguese charts and possibly maps tracing back to late medieval or even ancient traditions. Only a fragment of the original survives, but it clearly depicts the western coasts of Europe and Africa and the eastern coastline of the Americas with surprising accuracy for its time. The map includes detailed notes in Ottoman Turkish explaining where the data came from and how reliable each segment is. Some claim that the southern parts show an ice-free Antarctica, but mainstream cartographers argue that these areas more likely represent distorted views of South America or speculative southern lands. The mystery arises from the map's precision in longitude and coastal outlines despite the lack of advanced navigation instruments, suggesting extensive empirical sea experience and a sophisticated practice of compiling and correcting earlier charts. The Voynich manuscript is an illustrated codex written in an unknown script, carbon dated to the early 15th century. It consists of parchment pages filled with flowing, consistent handwriting in an undeciphered alphabet, accompanied by detailed drawings of plants, astronomical diagrams, bathing women, and complex circular charts. The text shows statistical patterns similar to natural languages, such as word frequency distributions and repeated structures, but no one has conclusively matched it to any known language or cipher system. Proposed explanations range from a lost natural language written in a special code to a constructed language to an elaborate hoax. The illustrations are equally puzzling. Many plants are unidentifiable or composite forms of known species, and the cosmological diagrams mix European and possibly non-European motifs. Attempts at decryption using classical code-breaking, computer algorithms, and linguistic analysis have produced competing, unverified translations. The manuscript's mystery lies in the combination of apparent linguistic structure, coherent page layout, and total lack of external references confirming its origin, purpose, or author. The crystal skulls are carved skull-shaped objects made from clear or milky quartz, often claimed to be pre-Columbian Mesoamerican artifacts with mystical properties. Several famous examples, such as the Mitchell-Hedges skull, appeared in the late 19th and early 20th centuries through dealers and private collections rather than scientific excavations. Early claims suggested they were ancient ritual objects created by Aztec or Maya craftsmen, but detailed microscopic and chemical studies revealed tool marks consistent with modern rotary carving tools and abrasives not available to pre-Hispanic artisans. This evidence strongly suggests that many well-known skulls were produced in Europe in the 19th century, likely for the antiquities trade. The mystery persists because of the lack of documentation about their exact manufacture, the persistence of popular stories about their supposed psychic or healing powers, and the way they have become embedded in modern New Age mythology. Scientifically, they illustrate how unverifiable provenance and the desire for exotic artifacts can distort understanding of actual indigenous cultures. The Shroud of Turin is a linen cloth bearing a faint, sepia-toned image of a man who appears to have been crucified. It is housed in Turin, Italy, and is traditionally claimed to be the burial shroud of Jesus of Nazareth. The image is anatomically detailed and displays apparent wounds consistent with scourging and crucifixion. However, its age and origin are disputed. Radiocarbon dating in 1988 on small samples suggested a medieval origin between 1260 and 1390 CE, indicating it may be a devotional artifact from that era. Critics of the tests argue that the sampled area might have been contaminated or repaired, and they point to pollen, textile structure, and faint inscriptions as evidence of greater antiquity. The image's formation mechanism is also unclear. It is not a simple painting. Pigments are minimal, and the coloration affects only the outermost fibrils of the linen. Hypotheses range from natural chemical reactions to artistic techniques or unknown photochemical processes. The shroud remains an artifact at the intersection of science, faith tradition, and unresolved forensic analysis. The Ark of the Covenant, as described in Hebrew Bible texts, is a sacred chest made of acacia wood overlaid with gold, constructed to house the stone tablets of the Ten Commandments. It features carrying poles and a cover called the mercy seat, flanked by two golden cherubim. In biblical narratives, the Ark served as a ritual focal point, accompanying the Israelites during travels and battles, and residing in the inner sanctum of the temple in Jerusalem. The mystery arises from its disappearance from the historical record after the Babylonian conquest of Jerusalem in the 6th century BCE. No archaeological evidence has been conclusively identified as the Ark. Various traditions claim it was hidden in the temple precincts, taken to Babylon, transported to Egypt or Ethiopia, or concealed in a remote sanctuary. Because the Ark is defined primarily by textual descriptions and religious significance, any physical candidate must match exact dimensions, materials, and associated context, conditions that have never been met, keeping the artifact's fate unresolved. The Iron Pillar of Delhi is a roughly 7-meter-tall wrought iron column located in the Qutb complex near Delhi, India, dated to around the 4th or 5th century CE. Its most notable feature is its exceptional resistance to corrosion, despite being exposed to the elements for over 100 years. The pillar bears an inscription in Sanskrit, written in Brahmi script, commemorating a king, often identified as Chandragupta II. Metallurgical analysis has shown that the iron contains a high phosphorus content and slag inclusions, characteristic of ancient Indian iron-making techniques. Over time, these properties, combined with the local climate, allowed a thin, adherent protective film of iron hydrogen phosphate to form, slowing further rusting. This rust-resistant behavior was once treated as mysterious, but it is now understood as the result of specific forging, slag distribution, and environmental conditions. The artifact is important not because it is inexplicable, but because it demonstrates sophisticated control over large-scale iron forging in ancient India, long before modern corrosion science. The Saqqara bird is a small, carved wooden object found in a tomb at Saqqara, Egypt, and dated to around the 2nd century BCE. It has the general shape of a bird with wings and a tail, but lacks clear legs and features a vertical tail fin rather than a spread tail, typical of bird sculptures. Its function is unknown. Some proponents of ancient aviation theories have suggested it represents a model glider or evidence of aerodynamic experimentation, noting that its center of mass and wing shape allow limited gliding when replicas are modified. However, there is no supporting textual or contextual evidence of flight technology from that period. Mainstream Egyptologists interpret it more conservatively as a stylized bird figurine, possibly a toy, ritual object, or representation of the BA, a spiritual aspect often depicted as a bird. The mystery persists mainly because of the ambiguous form, its isolated discovery, and the lack of inscriptions or associated artifacts explaining its intended symbolic or practical role. The Nazca lines are large geoglyphs etched into the desert plains of southern Peru, created by removing the darker surface pebbles to reveal lighter soil beneath. They date roughly from 500 BCE to 500 CE and include straight lines, geometric shapes, and biomorphic figures such as a hummingbird, spider, monkey, and whale. Many of the designs span hundreds of meters and are best appreciated from the air, which has fueled speculation about their purpose and construction. Archaeological evidence suggests they were made by organized groups using simple tools, stakes, and ropes to lay out precise patterns. Proposed functions include ritual pathways for processions, markers aligned with astronomical events like solstices, or symbols linked to water sources and fertility rituals in an arid environment. The mystery lies not in how they were made, which is technically straightforward, but in the absence of written explanations from Nazca culture, leaving scholars to infer meaning from orientation, associated artifacts, and comparisons with Andean religious practices. The stone spheres of Costa Rica, primarily found in the Decus Delta region, are nearly perfect stone spheres ranging from a few centimeters to over 2 meters in diameter. Most were carved from gabbro, a hard igneous rock during the pre-Columbian period, likely between 600 and 1500 CE. Many were discovered in situ on ancient settlement sites, while others were moved or damaged during modern agricultural development. The spheres display remarkable uniformity and smoothness, achieved using hammerstones, abrasive sand, and controlled heating and cooling. Their original purpose remains unclear. Hypotheses include astronomical alignments, boundary markers for elite residences, symbols of political power, or components of ritual landscapes. Because many spheres were removed from their original locations, patterns in placement are difficult to reconstruct, complicating interpretation. There is no credible evidence of alien or advanced technological origins. Instead, the spheres represent a labor-intensive, artistic and symbolic tradition within the Diquis culture, whose myths and meanings were largely lost after Spanish conquest. The Dendera light relief refers to a set of carvings in the Hathor Temple at Dendera, Egypt, depicting elongated oval shapes held by figures, sometimes connected to a lotus-like base and supported by pillars resembling arms. To some modern observers, these shapes resemble glass bulbs with filaments, leading to speculation about ancient electrical lighting. However, within the framework of Egyptian religious iconography, the scenes are better understood as symbolic representations of the creation myth. The bulb shape corresponds to a stylized depiction of the womb or a lotus enclosing a snake or deity, expressing the emergence of the world from primordial chaos. Hieroglyphic captions and nearby scenes consistently use standard mythological motifs, not technical terms for tools or devices. There is no archaeological evidence of electrical infrastructure in the temple or references to artificial lighting technology. The relief's mystery arises from projecting modern technological concepts onto ancient symbolic art rather than from any unresolved physical evidence of advanced engineering. The Sumerian king list is a cuneiform document preserved in multiple clay tablets from ancient Mesopotamia, compiled around the early 2nd millennium BCE. It lists a series of kings, their cities, and the lengths of their reigns, beginning with antediluvian rulers whose reigns are given fantastically long durations, thousands of years each, followed by post-flood dynasties with more realistic lifespans. The list combines myth, legend, and historical memory. The exaggerated reigns are usually interpreted as symbolic, reflecting divine or semi-divine status, numerological schemes, or the desire to link current political authority to a sacred primordial past. For later periods, the king list becomes a valuable historical source that partially aligns with archaeological evidence and other inscriptions. Its mystery lies in how to interpret the early segments, whether they encode real but heavily mythologized events, such as local floods and dynastic changes, or function primarily as ideological propaganda. The document shows how ancient scribes organized time, kingship, and cosmic order into a single narrative framework. Göbekli Tepe is an archaeological site in southeastern Turkey dated to around 9600 and 8000 BCE, making it one of the oldest known monumental ritual complexes. The site consists of circular and oval enclosures built from massive T-shaped limestone pillars, some over 5 meters tall, arranged around central monoliths. Many pillars are carved with reliefs of animals, abstract symbols, and stylized human forms. The people who built Göbekli Tepe were hunter-gatherers, not settled agriculturalists, which challenges the traditional sequence in which farming leads to permanent settlements, and then to large-scale religious architecture. The pillars themselves are mysterious because of their complex iconography and the organizational effort required to quarry, transport, and erect them without metal tools or domesticated draft animals. Interpretations include communal ritual spaces, ancestor cult centers, or cosmic cosmological diagrams encoded in animal motifs. The site appears deliberately buried after use, suggesting a planned termination of its function. Göbekli Tepe demonstrates that symbolic and religious complexity can precede, and perhaps stimulate, the development of agriculture and permanent villages. The Dropa stones are a set of alleged stone discs reportedly found in caves on the border between China and Tibet, each said to contain spiral grooves with microscopic hieroglyphic writing. According to popular accounts, the inscriptions describe a crashed spacecraft and a people called the Dropa, who became stranded on Earth. However, no verifiable archaeological documentation supports these claims. The stories originate from mid-20th century articles that lack primary sources, and no recognized museum or research institution has authenticated the discs or the supposed inscriptions. Chinese archaeological records do not corroborate the discovery as described in popular literature. Many researchers consider the Dropa stones a modern myth or hoax, created by combining genuine megalithic remains and imaginative narrative. The mystery, therefore, is not about the stones themselves, but about how unverified reports, repeated and embellished over decades, can create a powerful pseudo-archaeological narrative that persists despite the absence of physical evidence and scholarly confirmation. The Longyu Caves are a group of large, hand-carved sandstone chambers near Longyu County in Zhejiang Province, China, discovered in 1992, but likely excavated more than 2,000 years ago. Each cave features high ceilings, thick pillars, and walls covered with uniform chisel marks arranged in neat, parallel patterns. There are no historical texts that clearly describe their construction or purpose. The scale of excavation, removing an estimated hundreds of thousands of cubic meters of rock, implies a significant labor force and central coordination. Proposed functions include underground storage, flood refuges, ritual spaces, or tombs, though no human remains or clear ritual installations have been found. Their interiors are structurally stable despite the lack of visible reinforcement, reflecting careful engineering and knowledge of rock behavior. The mystery centers on the absence of inscriptions, artifacts, or historical references explaining who ordered such a project, why the chambers have consistent decorative patterns, and how they fit into the broader political and economic context of ancient Chinese society. The Olmec colossal heads are massive stone sculptures from the Gulf Coast region of Mexico, dated to around 1200 to 400 BCE. Carved from basalt boulders, they range from about 1.5 to over 3 meters in height and can weigh several tons. Each head depicts a human face with individualized features and a distinctive helmet-like headdress, suggesting specific rulers or important figures. The stones were often transported long distances from mountain quarries to their final locations, using methods that likely involved rolling, sledging, and manpower. The mystery lies less in their existence than in the incomplete understanding of Olmec political organization and religious symbolism. The heads demonstrate centralized authority capable of organizing quarrying, transport, and carving. But no written texts explain the identities of the individuals represented or the exact ceremonies linked to them. Some fringe theories claim they depict non-Mesoamerican populations, but craniofacial analyses show they fit within local variation. The heads embody the earliest known large-scale portrait sculpture tradition in the Americas. The London hammer is an iron hammer encased in a concretion of stone-like material, reportedly found near London, Texas, in the 1930s. The hammer's wooden handle and iron head appear typical of 19th century American tools, but the surrounding matrix resembles Cretaceous rock, leading some to claim it is an anomalous artifact proving advanced technology in deep geological time. Geological examination, however, indicates that the concretion is a secondary formation of minerals around the hammer, not original Cretaceous bedrock. Concretions can form relatively quickly when minerals in groundwater precipitate around a buried object. The iron head is consistent with 19th century metallurgy, and there is no evidence that the tool predates recent centuries. The mystery is largely a result of misunderstanding how rocks and concretions form, coupled with a lack of clear archaeological context for the hammer's original deposition. It serves as an example of how ordinary objects can be reinterpreted as anomalies when removed from their proper geological and historical frameworks. The Copper Scroll is one of the Dead Sea Scrolls discovered near Qumran, but it differs from the others in both material and content. Instead of parchment, it is inscribed on thin sheets of copper, dating to around the 1st century CE. The text lists dozens of locations and quantities of hidden treasures, gold, silver, and temple vessels, using terse, inventory-like language. Unlike the more overtly religious or sectarian scrolls, it reads as a practical document. The mystery arises because none of the listed hoards have been definitively identified, and the place descriptions are often cryptic, relying on local landmarks that no longer exist or cannot be securely recognized. Scholars debate whether the treasures were real temple assets hidden before a conflict, such as the First Jewish-Roman War, or symbolic representations of spiritual wealth. The scroll's unique material and content suggest a deliberate attempt to preserve information in durable form, but without corroborating archaeological finds, its exact function, record, guide, or coded allegory, remains unresolved.